Okay, hello there. It's Alina here, and I have been working in my practice with women with chronic pain, and particularly with endometriosis for last year. I'm based in Waikato, and my website is coremovement.co.nz. And today I'm talking to Julie, who is a nutritionist, also based in Waikato, and probably she will introduce herself.
Hello, nice to be here. Thanks for having me, Alina. So I'm Julie, and I'm a holistic nutritionist based in the Waikato, yes. My business is Nurture Nutrition, and my website is nurturenutrition.co.nz. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. I do work mainly with women's health and hormonal conditions, and but yeah, women's health is not separate to general health. So work with all sorts of different conditions. Lovely to be here.
Nice to have you. Thank you. And the reason I wanted to have this conversation is because March was Endometriosis Awareness Month, and working with women living with endo, quite often I hear a question: does diet even help? Endo symptoms and endo-related pain. I personally would reframe this question, because I don't like the word diet, because diet is always about restrictions. We also have an idea that it's about losing weight. Like, so that there is a lot of cultural load on this word. So I would rather reframe it asking whether nutrition can help endometriosis related symptoms, and pain is just one of them, because there are other symptoms as well. So, but what is your answer to this question? Do the nutritional changes help endo-related symptoms?
Yes, so I agree with you on the diet word. It's not one that I particularly like, because there's a lot of negative connotations there. We're wanting to focus on sustainability, you know, and not have that short-term kind of mindset. But yes, nutrition can absolutely help. Basically, with the goal of nutrition, because endometriosis is an inflammatory disorder, we're looking at reducing inflammation because what we eat can cause a lot of inflammation, which can contribute to the pain. So yeah, nutrition absolutely can help, and it can help quite a lot as well. Yeah, there's various aspects to that which we'll deep dive into, but to short answer, yes, absolutely.
Okay, and you see these changes happening in your practice, in your experience?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Some people, is it cutting out a little bit?
No, I don't think so, not on my side at least.
Okay, just your voice was going a bit funny. Some people will have huge reductions in symptoms by changing what they eat. Absolutely, we see some really good results.
Okay, and I just can add from my side, because I work through using touch, and use pain science education. And pain science education tells us a lot about how inflammational processes, they increase the overall alert of the nervous system, how nervous system is more alerted, more in the danger state, and how this can increase pain levels. So it makes total sense if we reduce this inflammational load through nutrition. Is one of the ways, because it's a very complex thing, right? And there are many different things that we could do. But if we reduce the inflammatory load on our systems, then the nervous system alertness side could also go down, and therefore decrease this danger messaging and the pain levels. Okay, and then the second question that I hear quite often is there such a thing as a typical endo diet or endo? Which kind of changes would you need to make? And I understand that it could be very different from one person to another because we are all different and we all probably need different types of food sometimes. But is there any kind of blanket recommendation that you would give to someone whom you cannot see privately for one-on-one consultations? Are there any basics really?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. So I'll give you like my top 3 recommendations, which are across the board. So they should be helpful for all endometriosis sufferers. But first, I just wanted to talk also about the immune system, because in endometriosis, the immune system is not, it's dysfunctional basically. And if your immune system was not dysfunctioning, then it would remove the endometriosis lesions. So what that means is that endometriosis is more about the immune system, and obviously inflammation is impacting the immune system. So it's not necessarily a hormonal condition. However, it is driven by hormones. And to put it really, really simply, estrogen upregulates the lesions while progesterone downregulates them. So yeah, our main goal is to reduce inflammation and to calm the immune system. One thing I just wanted to touch on is the gut health. So this can be quite individual. So leaky gut is something to be aware of. So in leaky gut, the intestinal barriers not, the junctions are not tight. So what it means is that food can escape from the gut, and that triggers your immune system, because your immune system recognizes the food particles or proteins, you know, we're talking about the smallest particles possible, as not being part of itself, you know. The immune system recognizes itself, and then it recognizes foreign invaders. So leaky gut is a huge part in inflammation and immune system. And then the other thing is that if you have gut infections, it can translocate is the word, but basically shift into the pelvic cavity, causing a lot of problems. And also food intolerances can cause a lot of inflammation. So it's really important to, and I find that most endometriosis women that come to me do have gut issues. So it's really important to kind of individually approach that. However, like I say, there is some things across the board that can help all sufferers. So the first one I would say is to really work on getting a balanced diet. So for this, that's, you know, ensuring your protein, fats and carbs are balanced in each meal. I've got a downloadable guide that tells you how to do this, so I can pop the link in the comments, but it's exactly what I use with my clients on our first session basically. The reason for this is because when it comes to the hormones, and we just touched on how they impact endometriosis, we need to have our liver functioning properly and, you know, give our gut what it needs. And for most women, I find it's making sure they get enough protein. So the guide I've got will tell you exactly how much you need. The other one was, we find that for a lot of people, the A1 dairy casein is inflammatory. So basically that's all your black and white cows you see around New Zealand, all those Friesian cows. They produce A1 dairy casein, which for if you have a certain set of genetics, you will have issues with that protein, and it can cause a lot of inflammation in the body. So without getting too technical there's a simple thing you can do, and that's when you go to the supermarket, look for the A2 milk and give that a go. Give it a go for a month and see how you go. If you don't want to jump into giving up dairy, of course.
Is the cheese still okay? Because milk is one thing, but
yeah, the cheese has the casein in it as well. And that's the thing, we're so focused sometimes on lactose, and in lactose you get there's no lactose in cheese or butter, so most people will have those things if they're on a lactose-free diet. Well, a lot of them will, but when you're talking about casein, it is a bit different. So yeah, it may be to just try and avoid dairy, but if you can't give up your milk, because I find for a lot of people milk is a hard one, they have it in their tea or coffee or whatever it is.
Everywhere.
Take a switch to A2 and see how you go, just for a month. It's just an easier switch than going completely dairy free, but I mean, if you're up for it, you could try eliminating dairy for 30 days. It can make a profound difference for a lot of people.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base on about A2 milk from my personal experience, because I was doing my own research a few years ago, because I have a son who had a stroke, and he has some difficulties that are related to his brain function and epilepsy and things like that. So that was my reason basically to start looking into the side of nutrition. And I can say that the changes were so powerful that I never looked back really. But I discovered that in New Zealand, there is this amazing researcher who wrote a book that is called Devil in the Milk or something like this. And he gives very detailed explanation about why A2 is different and how it was all discovered. So that was really interesting for me to find it out.
Yeah, I've kind of only in the last couple of years jumped into it as well. I know for me personally on my journey, because I came from a healing myself journey into doing what I do, but part of that, yeah, definitely, part of that journey involved removing dairy, because I had autoimmune issues, and there are similarities with endometriosis and autoimmune, especially when you go into leaky gut and whatnot. So removing removing dairy altogether was a part of my healing journey. So I know how powerful it can be, just changing a few things in your diet sometimes. And I know for some people jumping into removing all dairy might be too much, so start with the A2 milk and go from there.
Yeah, I love this idea, because it can be really overwhelming when people hear that they cannot have dairy, they cannot have their sugar, or they cannot have packaged food or something like that. And I remember when we started implementing these changes that we wanted to implement, I had the impression that I was just standing in the kitchen all the time and nobody liked the food I cooked. So it was really big, and it was a very big change. So I wouldn't recommend to anyone to do what we did, because I would rather suggest small steps and changing, taking care of one thing at a time. But that's how we went. And I remember that it was overwhelming. So I really love the idea of having the option of, simple swaps like you suggest for A2. I think it's really great. Anything else?
Yeah, definitely.
Swap to potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. So gluten is another one that can be problematic. So just quickly jumping back to A2 for a second. you could actually still eat a little bit of cheese and just swap they to milk if it's too overwhelming to ditch the other things, because you generally tend to have smaller amounts of cheese and butter.
Yeah.
Just, you know, to make it easier for people, just focus on the milk first and see if that makes a difference, you know. And when we jump back into gluten, there has been, like, I've been looking at the research lately, and there is a higher amount of celiac disease amongst endometriosis sufferers. So it is something that could be worth investigating. However, it's also, there's other reasons, like you could be not celiac and still have issues. And that all comes back to gut infections and whatnot, and also leaky gut, because the proteins and even the carbohydrates in gluten can cause the problems. And wheat. So gluten's the protein, and there's also carbohydrates in wheat that can be a problem for people as well. So especially if they've got, so SIBO's one, it's like an overgrowth of bacteria, and when that happens, you will react to the carbohydrates in wheat. So there's multiple ways that wheat can be causing inflammation in the body. It's not necessarily, I don't have celiac disease, so I'm okay with wheat. If you don't have celiac disease, wheat might be something that you can bring back in at some point. It just really depends how well it helps your symptoms, if you have improvement when you remove it, you know. I know for me, and I had, as I say, an autoimmune background. I didn't have endometriosis, but and I have so far only tested negative to celiac disease. That's another bit of a rabbit hole as well, because it can be quite hard to get a celiac disease diagnosis. So if you have a negative blood test, I wouldn't necessarily 100% rule that out, especially if you've got the genes. So just, I won't dive into that, but just putting that out there. But for me, I never, even though I have been told I'm negative to celiac, I never put wheat back into my diet, because it made such a huge difference to my life to remove it. So what I wanted to say, because again, we're talking about removing quite a staple food. So let's just look at reducing it even, you know, that could go a long way. So what I would suggest is to look at where you're eating the most wheat. For some people, this will be bread. Well, for most people, this will be bread. So looking at switching to a gluten-free bread, for example. But I do think if you're following the balanced diet, which, like I said, I've got the handout on how to do that, you probably won't be having toast for breakfast anymore. Unless you're really focusing on, you know, putting hummus on it and putting hemp seeds on the hummus and like bumping up the protein, then bread's probably going to be more of a side thing. So I think find where you're consuming it the most and start there, rather than having to tell yourself, oh, I'm now gluten-free, oh, what am I going to do when I eat out, you know. Just reducing it for 30 days and see if it makes an impact. If you're able to just jump in and remove gluten and dairy for 30 days, that's fantastic, you know. But don't feel, you know, progress is better than perfection. So
absolutely,
for many people anyway, because perfection, you know, if you're striving for perfection, you can end up in that space where, oh no, I've done something wrong and I've totally destroyed my my plan, and you know, emotionally, like what we're talking about with the diet thing, we know that they don't work because as soon as you trip up, you spiral, you know, like you feel like a failure, and that leads to eating things that aren't so beneficial. And yeah, so even if you just focus on baby steps and progress over perfection.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important because, yeah, again, it's so much easier to do when you have the small steps. I just wanted to add that we basically never have a toast for breakfast, and we have lots of buckwheat, but that's my Russian heritage. But it's not. And another question that I hear from people sometimes, it's like, but it's so expensive to eat gluten-free, and I tell no, it's not, because if you want to buy the packaged food that are replacing your usual gluten food, then yes, it is expensive. But if you just eat a balanced diet where you eat meat, vegetables, and some grains like buckwheat, then it's not really expensive. It doesn't cost you that much.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Like when I see what people spend on food, whenever there's like a survey or something, I have 4 children, so I have like quite a large family. When I see what people spend on food, I always look at that number and think, well, that's a lot more than what I spend, you know. And like you say, you can buy the whole grains or whatever it is. You can, like, for example, eggs, they're quite a good source of protein that aren't overly expensive, and they fill you up as well. So if you have that balanced meal with protein in the morning, especially in the morning, which is where most people find it the hardest, you're less likely to have that muffin at 10 o'clock, you know. You're probably going to be full a lot longer. And you can make things like you say, I'm not sure what you do with the buckwheat, but you can make porridge or, you know, all sorts of things. You can even just sprout buckwheat and have it like a cereal. You can make, like I say, porridge out of things other than oats if you're that, you know, if you're celiac or that sensitive. And yeah, if you're just new to balanced meals as well, I find some people find just getting a dairy-free protein powder to be quite helpful as well, and mixing that into their breakfast. Yeah, maybe like a chia pudding, or, you know, it doesn't have to be a $10 loaf of gluten-free bread 3 times a week. Yeah, there's alternatives. And what I generally do is, before I work with someone, I'll get their food diary. Of course, I'm looking at whether they're, you know, they're getting enough micronutrients and whether their diet might be contributing to deficiencies, but also just looking at what they like to eat so I can help them make swaps. Sometimes it's just simple things to swap around, you know. Instead of going for the real sugary chocolate, maybe go for the 80% or something, and just get your body used to that. Yeah, dairy free and less sugar. So
yeah. Oh yeah, sugar is another very big thing that was like big thing for us in our journey. But yeah, I'm so happy that it's not a big part of our diet any longer. So basically, just to summarize, you would say eat a balanced diet, making sure that you include enough proteins, swap in milk for A2 for a month and see whether it makes you feel better, and swap in your bread for a gluten-free, some kind of gluten-free option for a month, and again to see whether it's better. And then probably having a food diary is a good idea, and writing down your symptoms and pain symptoms, digestive symptoms, anything else, and your foods that you ingest during the day would be also a good idea, because then you can look back and see how things correlate.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, it might not be gluten-free bread, just to touch on that. It could be that you eat pasta 4 times a week or something, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And there is plenty of options for gluten-free pasta now as well. Or you could just, like, there's Countdown has buckwheat pasta or quinoa pasta, I think they even have. And it's not expensive either. It's in that macro range. But yeah, whatever it is where you're eating the most wheat, to replace that with the gluten-free option. And if it's a side dish, you may just want to replace it with more vegetables, or like a different sort of starch like kumara, or some sort of whole food instead.
Okay, while we're here on this topic, because in March there were a few organizations that were holding fundraising events for endometriosis, and one of the suggestions was to hold a high tea. So what do you think about high teas? Because it would be lots of sugar. So any comments, any suggestions on that?
Yeah, well, I guess with the high tea, we're thinking like tea and cakes, you know. That's what I think of when I think of high tea, which is, you know, it's nice. It's not something you do every day. So in the context of a normal, you know, someone that doesn't have any health conditions, having a high tea and having a few little treats is probably good for their soul, you know. It's probably is. But when you're talking about endometriosis, right, it is a serious health condition, and it's a high tea may not be the best idea. I would say if you invite people to a high tea, they're going to expect cakes, you know. And you could do an alternative version of that where you just have an afternoon tea, and you could you know, include things that have protein in them, and things that have less sugar, and you know, nut-based things, or it's really hard to do the high tea thing, I think, unless you have it somewhere where they specialize in healthy high teas, perhaps. But then it would be hard to actually raise the funds there, because that's going to be a bit pricier than, you know, flour and sugar are cheap, aren't they? Flour and sugar are really cheap.
That's right. And so we better go on a walk instead. We do some kind of walking fundraising rather than high tea. Okay. And because we didn't,
That's okay, carry on. There's sometimes a slight delay with the sound.
I just wanted to say, because we spoke about dairy, we spoke about gluten and balanced diet, but we didn't really mention anything about sugar. And like, what do you want to say about it? What's wrong with sugar? Just in a couple of words. What's the problem?
For most people, it's causing inflammation as well. I mean, if you get your diet balanced and follow that sort of worksheet, remove A2 dairy, and you try a gluten-free diet, as a byproduct of those things, you're probably cutting down on sugar too. Like, I imagine you will be. So I didn't put it in my top 3, but yeah, it's inflammatory. And there's other things on that inflammatory list as well, you know, like seed oils, for example, which most restaurants will cook in as well. So they are definitely on the list, and they're quite high on the list. They'll be the next things, you know, if we were to carry on with the list. But yeah, just the way, like I say, those 3 things would naturally reduce your sugar consumption. If you made an effort to eat the right amount of carbs, fats, and proteins at each meal, there would be a lot less room for sugar, and you wouldn't be needing it so much, because protein, for example, in terms of satiety, keeping you full for a long time, then protein's going to be number one, you know, so you're less likely to need sugar, and your blood sugars are nice and balanced.
Yeah, so we are rather crowding out things that we don't want rather than restricting and telling, well, no, that's not what you can have, right?
Yeah,
so we make sure that we
It's
have
about-
plenty of goodness, and we don't have so often all these calls or cravings. And I just also want to mention that from my personal experience, once you tell that you are not going to eat packaged food, you only eat foods that you cook from scratch and whole foods, basically lots of sugar is gone. Other way around, if you don't want to eat, if you want to avoid sugar, it means that the packaged foods have to go.
Exactly. And what you find is that if you committed to just doing those 3 things for a month, your whole body chemistry is going to change, you know, your taste for sugar will be less, and you will notice if you went out to a high tea and ate 5 cakes, you know, you probably come home and go have a sleep, because all of a sudden your body's back on that blood sugar roller coaster, you know, and what goes up has to come down. So within a couple of hours of eating that much sugar, your body's gonna tell you, no, this isn't what we want. We liked what you were doing. You were doing a good thing, and now what's this, you know? And it's actually harder to go to totally fall off the wagon if you have committed to something for a month. And like I say, you don't have to fully go in, and you just need to make those small baby steps, and even in a month's time you'll be totally different to where you started, just by making a few small changes.
Okay, so basically, even if you don't want to if it's, how to say it, if we don't need to aim to remove all the sugar immediately, but if we do those 3 things, eating a balanced diet and protein, A2 and gluten-free, then at the end of the month, it's very possible that your body is going to take care of itself and is going to tell, I just don't have that many sugar cravings, and it's just something that settles down, and we can have probably an occasional sugary thing or 2, but it's not that roller coaster that you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. When you make these small conscious sort of changes, you do tend to come back to yourself, and that your body signals are a lot clearer, and you're more in touch with what your body's trying to tell you. Because if you're just completely crowded with inflammation, you know, it can interfere with your mind, basically, because your gut and your mind, and I mean, you know, this stuff of what you do is connected through the vagus nerve, and even now they're discovering that like Alzheimer's plaques start in the gut and they travel up the vagus nerve, and you know, that's really linked into sugar and gut health and everything as well. So sometimes it might feel like these are huge changes, but they really are an investment in your future health as well. The flow-on effect in all areas of your life and your family's lives, you know, it's huge. It's and yeah, sometimes it's just these small adjustments that can really have a huge effect, and it may not be straight away, but it's a gradual thing, you know. Over time things start correcting. We live in a world where our brains go for that quick burst of energy, you know, because it's survival instinct, isn't it? and they're so easily available. Like if you wanted to go and get a balanced meal and you're in a small town and your only option is a supermarket, it's so much easier actually just to grab, to just be like, it's too much to think about. I'll just go get fish and chips or something, and often convenient foods, they're quick and easy, but they generally lack protein, have got bad fats and the copious amounts of sugar. So once you can get your head around it, you can create balanced meals wherever you are. You can go to the supermarket and grab a couple of things, go back to your hotel or whatever and throw together your own balanced meal. You don't have to rely on getting takeaways or
that's right. Okay, and my last question will be a bit tricky because I see around again for the Endometriosis Awareness Month, I see all kind of giveaways. And I came upon I don't know, probably you'll not see it here, but it doesn't matter. It's called Endometriosis Essentials Pack, and they're with bags there and some other stuff, nice candles, mini TENS machine. But there are 3 ingestible items, and I would ask you, what do you think? Is it a keeper or is it a goer? Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a chamomile tea.
Okay, well, herbal teas, I mean, they are sugar, gluten, dairy, everything free. It's just like an infusion of herbs. So yeah, there's no reason, if you enjoy it and you feel it's helpful, then no reason you can't include that. If you do find it's a bit helpful, you may even want to look at talking to a herbalist or looking at the like the Artemis teas, which are stronger, and getting something to make a proper herbal infusion. Yeah,
so you mean not just the supermarket teas, but go deeper, dive deeper, and
if it works for you, why not go a bit deeper into that? You may even find that you have jars of herbs at some point, which I do, and I just throw different things together and make my own combo teas.
Okay, the next one, I guess it will be similar, peppermint tea.
Yeah, definitely similar thing. I mean, all of the different, like even culinary spices and garden herbs, they all have their benefits. So I would say they generally tend to be okay for most people. So if it tastes good and you find it beneficial, any sort of a herbal tea then should be absolutely fine for you.
Cool. And the last one is Whittaker's Creamy Milk, 33% cocoa. What do you think about this one?
Okay, so sorry, what was, you said 33%?
33%.
What was the
creamy milk?
Oh, creamy milk.
That's very milky one, and I understand why, because it's an ultimate comfort food, I think, for many people, because when you feel, I don't know, when you have pain or something, I understand why you would want to reach for something like that. But is it helpful?
The thing with casein is it's got similar sort of effects on the brain as you probably heard about this, but like opium and like some quite significant drugs. So in a way, it's a comfort food, not just because of the sugar and the beautiful taste of it, but because of the way it's affecting your brain. And like if you were to drink a wine or have, a whatever it is that you reach to for kind of blocking out whatever discomfort you're feeling, which so that's going into a whole different sort of ballpark there. But if we look at it in terms of cacao is great, but if it's 33%, it's quite low. And it's obviously a dairy one. So going back to what we were talking about with A2 milk, it's definitely not the best choice for chocolate. If you go for like I don't know where it starts, but somewhere around 70%. If you flip over the label, well, flip over the packet to the back and check out the label, most of the 70% and up sort of ones will not have any dairy in it. And because there's so much cacao, they tend to have a lot less sugar, a lot. So what I do is just look at the carbohydrate count. They give you, in New Zealand, you get the carbohydrates per 100 grams.
Yeah.
So pick up the 33% one, pick up the however dark you can stand. You know, some people will need to start somewhere at 70, and compare the carbohydrate count between the 33 and the 70, and you'll be shocked, you know. It will be double the amount of carbs, which is sugars. It's just easier to look at carbs, because when you think of chocolate, it's mostly it should be mostly fat, but the dairy ones are especially going way down in the cocoa levels, they are mostly sugar, you know. So check out that part of the label, and that will tell you everything you need to know. Otherwise, if you're not into reading labels, just check whether it's dairy free, and if it's a higher percentage, it's going to have a lower percentage of sugar. So you can still have chocolate, but go up your cacao levels to, you know, it's easy to get like Lindt chocolate. They have 80, 85, 90. I think they even have 95 now, which is probably a bit extreme for most people. And there's also the green and blacks, the organics ones. Yeah, there's usually that option in the supermarket. I've never been to one that didn't have that option, where you can just quickly choose a different chocolate, which will also make a huge difference in the long run if it's something that you're eating quite often.
Okay, so we would swap that one probably for a non-dairy and higher percentage of cacao, which will give us lesser sugar content.
Exactly. There's fancier ways to do it, but you know, we're at the supermarket and we want to make a quick decision. We're just gonna do that. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add? Probably is, I don't know if you can let people know if they want to reach you, to touch base with you about something, ask their questions, or know how to work with you, where to grab your free plans. Just let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you download the Balanced Meal Guide, you'll automatically go on my VIP list. I only do about 1 email a month, so I'm not going to bombard you, but there is a bit of a welcome series just to tell you more about me and what I do. So for the first few days, you'll get a few emails, but after that, I promise you won't be bombarded by me. Yeah, and also I do have some one-on-one spaces at the moment. Like you can follow me on Facebook. I post on social media quite regularly, and I try and make sure there's plenty of good information there that's helpful, and not just, you know, advertising or anything. So definitely.
And it is helpful. I follow you, so I know it is helpful.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously check out my website. I'm actually about to publish a blog on endometriosis. About a year ago, I changed my website, and I deleted a lot of my blogs because I changed the whole platform. But I did a post about endometriosis the other day and talked about some of what we're talking about today. And I could really see the need to get another blog up. So I've basically written that now, and I just need to load it up. But I did want to mention as well is that I have a reset program at the moment. Like in the past, I've run it as a group program, and everyone that's joined in that's had endometriosis has had fantastic results, because it is diving into doing these things we've talked about today. and it works on a kind of elimination basis. So this would be for the self-directed person that's willing to just dive straight in and commit to the 30 days dairy, gluten, etc. free, and then reintroduce them at the end slowly and watch for reactions, etc. And that's called Reset. So I am recording videos and turning it into a course, but at the moment it's just basically a DIY plan with a meal plan. So all your meals are planned out for you with a shopping list and extra recipes if you don't like what's on the meal plan. Yeah. And so it's inexpensive and it gives you somewhere to just start if you want to jump right in. Otherwise, on my website, you can see how I work with people and how you can contact me if you have any questions.
Okay, awesome. We'll put all the links in the description so that people can go straight there. And thank you so much for your time. And if you guys want to find or follow me, it's coromovement.co.nz, my socials, and I help not with the nutritional side of things, obviously, but with pain science education, touch, and movement. And if you want more of such videos, if you have more questions about nutrition or any other stuff, please also reach out and let us know, because if we see that it's something that works for people, we might do another one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much, Julie. Thank you for sharing, and bye-bye.
Great, thanks for having me. Bye.